guys, are you taking the SAT soon and trying to figure out what the heck you should do with your final few hours, moments, minutes, or whatever time you have left before the exam? If so, this video is for you. Before we get started, I want to recommend that everybody subscribe to our channel by clicking subscribe below this video and head to supertutortv.com/subscribe to subscribe to our mailing list. I also want to let you guys know that we are planning to release the best SAT prep course ever during or before the fall of 2018. So we will keep you posted on our progress on that if you subscribe. And in addition, we already have the best ACT prep course ever that is available for purchase at supertutortv.com. And it is me sharing all of my secrets that I give to all of my students with you guys. It's over 50 hours of video content, and it's a complete prep solution for the ACT. So go check it out if you're prepping for that. So as we get started here, I'm gonna break you guys into two categories first, in terms of what you should be doing the night before the SAT. The two categories are people who have not studied at all and people who've done some prep so far. If you're in that first group, I actually have a video that's geared toward you a little bit more, and that's called How to Cram for the SAT. So I recommend that you guys. Hey everybody, welcome to Super Tutor TV. My name is Brooke, and today I'm going to talk about how to cram for the SAT, or in other words, last minute tips for procrastinators. So the first tip that I want to give you is if you don't have a lot of time to prep for this test, one of the best things you can do is familiarize yourself with the test. Get a hold of a practice test and read through the directions. The directions on the test are the same on every test. The instructor at the test center may not read every single detail of the instructions. They say, open your test booklet to page, read the instructions and begin, and you start the timing immediately. So you don't get all this extra time to read over all of the instructions, and if you've done it in advance, it's going to be to your benefit. So that's the first thing I recommend. Get a hold of that practice test, read through all the instructional kind of things. The other thing you should familiarize yourself with is how do you do the bubbling on the open-ended answers of the math section. I know that confused me when I took the SAT for the first time. I was like, what do I do with this? But if you're a first-time test taker and you've never taken this thing before and then you have to show up the test day and figure that out, that can be stressful. So a few tips for this thing. I don't recommend that you try to use mixed fractions, meaning if you want to put 1 2/5, you need to put 7/5. You need to put the improper fraction version. Otherwise, it's going to look like 12/5, not 1 2/5, and that would be not good for your SAT score. The other option is you can always use decimals, and you can round or you can truncate. You want to put as many figures as possible unless the question specifies that you should be rounding to a particular point. And then finally, the other thing that's kind of confusing is there's 4 slots for numbers, so you might not know where to put your number, but you can put it anywhere you want. So you can put 4.5 over on the right-hand side, or you can put it on the left-hand side. One other tip, just in terms of directions and things like this, is that you are not counted off anymore on the SAT for wrong answer choices. So if for any reason you don't finish the test, I recommend that you put an answer choice no matter what. That might mean if you're running out of time in the math section, you put B, 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 B on all the multiple choice left. So yeah, familiarize yourself with the test, get to know it a little bit, read all the directions you can find, and you're gonna just be able to speed up the process whenever you take this test, whether it's tomorrow or in a week. After you've familiarized yourself, now that you have a hold of a practice test, I recommend that you take that practice test timed and see how you do. So the number one thing that I want you to focus on if you're going to be cramming and taking a practice test is timing, because that is usually the easiest thing to tweak just a little bit, and something that can be absolutely disastrous if you've just never seen the thing before. Print it out. It's really important that you print it out if at all possible, because if you take it from a screen, it's not an accurate representation of what you're capable of. Most people read about 30% slower when they read from a screen. Now, if you don't have time for a full practice test, because that could take about 4 hours, and maybe you don't have 4 hours, what I would do is then try to cut up the test into a portion of it. So if you can't do the whole thing, maybe try one section. The section that I have the most trouble with on time is the math no calculator section. It's a pretty short section. So if you only have time to do one, that might be what I would do, just to pace yourself. After you've taken your practice test or some practice questions, check your answers and go over them. So what's really cool is that the College Board has released complete answer explanations for every question in all 4 of their practice exams. So what that means is you not only can just see what you got wrong and what the right answer was, you can actually see an explanation of why that was right. So I recommend you read over those explanations or look over the question yourself. See if you can figure it out. Why was that answer choice better than what you chose? One of the things that you really don't want to do is you don't want to convince yourself that you're right and the test is wrong. The whole point of this is to learn from this experience and learn from your mistakes. If you have the time after you figure out how somebody else did a particular type of problem, try that problem again without looking at the answer choice and try to work it out. If you know how to do that kind of problem, it will show up almost identically on your SAT with different numbers. I'm not talking about every single question on the math section, but there will be a few. So hey, it's worth it if you can do it. And here's another tip. If it's not the day before the test for some reason, you can do more than one practice test. The more practice you can get in before the test, the better, especially if you have a chance to learn from your mistakes and go over your tests. So fourth tip is program your calculator. SuperTutor TV has another video that's dedicated entirely to this topic, so I'm not going to get into it too much here, but I recommend you go check out that video. The other thing I'm going to say is that for this particular test, if you're like the night before or the week before, there are 2 or 3 particular programs that I would recommend for you specifically. One is the Algebra 2 Solver by Sam Hund. It is awesome. And I would check out features 1, 2, and 7 if you download that, numbers 1, 2, and 7. One is slope-intercept form of a line. It's super helpful. And the other 2 are solving systems of equations, which are also super helpful on this exam. And the other thing that I would definitely recommend downloading is the quadratic equation. So check out our calculator video. It's going to take you through everything and give you lots of other tips. But if you're only going to have time to download 2, those are the 2 I would do. Number 5 is pack. I actually have a totally separate video for what to pack for the SAT, so I'm not going to go through the packing list right now. Go check out that video too, and if you see the blog post, we'll put this in the blog post as well at supertutortv.com, but make sure you've packed all the items that you need. There's also a list on your admission ticket. Food. So this is actually another item on your list of things to pack, but I gave it its own special category because I do think it's particularly important in a way that you might not realize. There are scores of studies going back to the 1960s that have shown that students who eat breakfast do better on standardized tests. So if that's what studies show, and you're cramming and you have no time to prep for the SAT, there is one thing you can magically do to increase your score, and that is eat. I highly recommend that you eat a good breakfast. That could be oatmeal, it could be eggs, it could be whole grain toast or a peanut butter sandwich, but get some good calories in you and get ready for the day by filling yourself up. I would also recommend that you take advantage of all the breaks and just eat at every break. Bring high energy snacks, bring a sandwich, bring cheese sticks, bring nuts, bring fruit, bring a full lunch, I would say almost. Your first break is the longest usually, which is kind of frustrating in a way because oftentimes you're not hungry yet by the first break. And then a little bit later, you're gonna have a 5-minute break. And then you usually have, if you're taking the essay, you have like this in-class break, which is kind of lame and you can't eat during it. So my point is by the time you actually wanna eat, you're not gonna be able to eat. So eat whenever possible so that by the time you get to the end, you're full of fuel and ready to go. I also recommend you bring a water bottle or a non-sugary beverage to sip from. Do not drink caffeine unless you're used to it. If it's not something you do every morning, please don't decide the day of the SAT to try it. It's not a good idea. 2 more quick tips, and one is pretty obvious, and that's just get a good night's sleep. Sleep 7 or 8 hours if you can at least. And then finally, meditate. Studies have also shown that meditation can increase focus and concentration, and maybe that could translate to a better SAT score. So if that's of interest to you, I encourage you, you're already on YouTube, why don't you do a little search and try to find a quick video how to meditate in 5 minutes or less. And that's about it. I would spend 10 minutes meditating before the test. It can't hurt. So that's it. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. You can like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter. I have a lot of answers up on Quora if you like my advice and you want to hear more of it. If you are taking the SAT this weekend or maybe in a few months or
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I haven't made a video in a couple weeks, so I'm glad to be back, and I have a big video for you guys today. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about calculator hacks and programs you want to use on your calculator in the SAT math section. So I got all that and more. This is huge for anybody. If you're good at math, not good at math, I don't care. This can absolutely turn your score around and improve your score on the SATs big time. Let's get to it. When when you're trying to improve your score. So if you're taking the SATs, we all know that there are two sections to the math now. There's a calculator section and there's a non-calculator section. So I can't really help you on the non-calculator section in this video, but you might want to check out some of my other videos. And actually, while we're on the topic, if you're interested in college or career advice, maybe you're in high school, you're in college, maybe you just got out of college, and you're looking for a couple of tips and tricks, definitely check out my channel. Be sure to consider subscribing, and if you find this video helpful, be sure to drop a like, smash that like button. I really appreciate the positive feedback from you guys. Let's get back to it. Okay, so the SAT calculator section. Now, if you are somebody who is not good at math, then you definitely want to know how to do this. But you know what, honestly, I don't even care. Even if you are good at math, if you are human, anybody who's human and taking the SAT, so yes, that is you, then you need to know how to do this. So anytime you're doing math, you know, I'm an engineer and I'm a physicist. I'm in college, it's my 4th year, so I've taken a lot of math classes. And every now and then, you just get one of those days where, you know, 2 and 2 adds up to 5. Like, you don't know why, you don't know what you did, but you just added it up and you screwed something up. So when you're taking the SATs, that is not the day to do that. You want to make sure you don't make any mistakes, and this calculator will help you do that. So now there are a lot of different calculators. The SAT says that you can bring your own calculator. Actually, I'm pretty sure you have to bring your own calculator. So first of all, be sure to bring a calculator that you like, that you are well acquainted with, you know what the buttons do, maybe you've used it for a while, whatever you use in your classes. And make sure the batteries are okay on it. So, you know, you don't want to get there and have your batteries die. So maybe put fresh batteries in right before you go, or maybe bring an extra 2 batteries or whatever. I don't know. It can make a big difference if you don't have your calculator dying in the middle of the exam. This calculator, I'm going to talk about the TI-89, but this is also the same as the TI-84. They're almost identical calculators. This one does a little bit more. You know, when you're in college, you might want to get this one, but it does the same thing for your purposes. There's a ton of other ones, so check if your calculator is okay. You know, go on the SAT website, the College Board website, and they have a list of what calculators. But I'm really focusing on the programmable graphing calculator. So if you don't know what that is, you know, just look at if it has a giant screen on the top, you know, it's probably a graphing calculator that you can program. And so, you know, a lot of people just use this as like a basic arithmetic calculator. You're adding, subtracting, blah, 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 whatever. But honestly, it does so much more. If you look at how many buttons are on there, and each one has like little buttons on the side that are, you know, if you hit second, it's a different button. If you hit the alpha key, it's another button. So you have all these different buttons. You can do anything with this. You can graph stuff. You can, you know, solve problems. You can call your mom with this. Okay, maybe you can't call your mom with this, but this thing can do so much stuff that is unbelievable. So I don't know if you knew this, but you can actually download programs on your calculator with this little, see the little it's not focusing on it, but the USB thing right there. So you can plug this into your computer, you can go online, and there are tons of programs you can get on your calculator. Jumping right into which programs are good, the very first 3 that I have, actually, these are kind of bundled together, are the basic algebra ones where you have the quadratic equation, you have the midpoint formula, and you have the distance formula. So these are 3 equations that you're going to be using all the time in really any time you're evaluating any kind of line or function in algebra, you're definitely going to want to know these functions. So do you need these programs? Not necessarily. You can do them on your own. But if you have them in there, that's really quick. You just type in the numbers and it does it for you. It's really, honestly, I'm surprised that the SATs allow you to do this because it's so easy. It sort of destroys that problem altogether. You don't even have to think. You just type in the numbers into the program and it just comes out with exactly what you need. Now, another disclaimer, as I said before, make sure that you're allowed to use programs. Right now, my current research and everything I've read online says that you can. The SAT College Board has not banned the use of programs on calculators, so we assume that you can use them. So absolutely use them, but look it up on your own to make sure that they have not changed the rule. I don't want to get you in trouble, and you don't want to get yourself in trouble. So the next program we're going to talk about is actually one that's already on there. This is huge. If you have any kind of line and they want to find the 0, they want to find an intersection of 2 lines, they want to do anything like that, if you are doing any kind of math like that, or you want to find the minimum maybe, just graph it. You know, like all you have to do is go to y equals, type in the equation, and then hit graph, And once you have that up, you have all these different tools where you can find the minimum on there, you can find the maximum, you can find where two lines intersect, you can find where they cross the x-axis, the y-axis. You can find all this information about lines and functions just by graphing them. So definitely mess around with that a little bit tonight, tomorrow, whenever, before your SAT. Definitely check that out. That is a huge, huge benefit. Why would you mess around trying to manipulate equations when you can just graph them and get it right there? Another one, this is a little bit of a smaller one, but definitely will save you time, and that is converting to fractions. So this is on almost every calculator. Even scientific calculators will do this. If you type in a bunch of fractions, you add them all together, you hit equals, it'll give you a decimal in a lot of cases, but some calculators automatically give you a fraction, in which case, awesome. If that's not the case, then you just go to catalog and you say, to fraction, and make sure you look up for your specific calculator where exactly that is, but they pretty much all do that. So instead of adding 1/3 plus 1/6 plus 1/2, and you're like, oh, what is that? And you got to find common denominators and all that stuff, you just type it in, you find out it's 1. It's easy stuff like that that can save you a lot of time, and you will make sure you don't screw up stupid, easy problems like that. Okay, so the next program you guys have to get is the equation solver. Now, if you are working with two different equations and they have two different unknowns, you want to find out where they match up, then you can use an equation solver. Now again, you can also graph them as lines, and you can find out where they intersect. That is absolutely the same thing as solving a system of equations, but in a lot of cases, it might be easier to just use an equation solver on your calculator. So that's definitely huge. One thing you want to note with that, though, is if you're solving trig functions, it's going to repeat. And a lot of times, if you're finding where sine and cosine intersect, obviously it's infinite times. So that's where it might be easier to graph. But in a lot of cases, definitely check out that program. A solver is absolutely essential when you're trying to find out where two equations match up. Now, lastly, the next big one I have is, so let's say, I said there's a ton of buttons on this, and let's say you don't know how to use them. Let's say you don't know all of them, because let's be honest, there's so many buttons, I don't know how to use half of them. So what do? Find out how you can use catalog help. So if you're using a TI-89, you can hit catalog, the button catalog right there will show you all of the functions that your calculator has, and there are quite a few functions. So you can go down, you keep hitting the down arrow, or you hit alpha and then the letter that it starts with, and that'll bring you right to the section where you'll find the function that you need. And then once you have that function there, you can either hit on here, F1 is the help key, or in a lot of situations, if you're using a TI-84 or any of the older ones, you just hit the plus button, and it'll bring you to this window, and it'll tell you what the inputs for that function are. So if you're working with maybe statistics, and you have to do something with statistics, you're looking at a set of numbers, and you're trying to find out some value, you don't know what numbers go where, how to use that function, use the help function on your calculator that is built in. It'll tell you and walk you through how to use any function that it has. So that is absolutely a big key to that. And I have used that countless times, in high school, college, SATs, everywhere, absolutely everywhere. All right, guys, so this was just a quick video. That's all I have for you today. That is how you can use your calculator to absolutely turn around.
So calculator programs are helpful when you're running out of time on a question on the SAT, and they just generally are fast ways for you to plug and chug numbers in and get the answers out right away. So let's start with the quadratic formula program. So we're gonna go here where it says PRGM. We're gonna hit that, and then here you see execute, edit, and new. So we're gonna move over to new and press enter. And then we're gonna call this one quad for quadratic. So we're gonna hit second, then alpha. So that's gonna alpha lock our keyboard. So then let's go over to find the discriminant. So the discriminant is so in parentheses, just like that. Hit enter and you're done. So we can second quit and then hit program again. Now you'll see our quad program.
So, the ultimate math elimination trick goes like this. Whenever you look at a math problem and there are 5 choices, what you have to realize is that all of the wrong answers are spawned from the right answer. What the test makers are hoping is that you're going to make some small mistake on your way towards finding the right answer. What that means is that there's going to be one right answer and then 4 answers that have some weird thing in them where you kind of went astray at some point. So the big trick to realize is that all of the wrong answers are somehow similar to the right answer. And the big revelation there is to realize that, wait a minute, the right answer is usually the one that's going to look the most like the other answers. So let's dive right in. I only see one fraction here, so that's done. Now, when I look at these answers, 3 of them involve non-whole numbers. 2 of them do involve whole numbers, so I'm going to get rid of these guys. Also, I want you to realize that 9 is the only 9 that shows up here, so that's pretty terrible also. So, it's between B and D. Now, both of them have root 3 in them, but one of them multiplies 3 by root 3. The problem is that D is the only answer that seems to multiply something by something else. So I'm going to get rid of that guy, and I'm going to go with B. Now, this takes you about 20 seconds tops once you get really good at this method, and it is by far the most accurate way to guess. You need a better than 20% kind of method to justify guessing at any given time. In this case, I guarantee you this is much better than 20%, and in my research, doing this method gives you about a 55% chance of getting the right answer. So, if you're ever running low on time, or if you just have no idea how to solve a problem, use this elimination method and always pick an answer rather than leaving something blank. And we're good to go. This elimination method and always pick an answer rather than leaving something blank. And we're good to go. Once again, I have no idea how to solve this problem at all. So I look and I see, alright, 3 of the answers are not fractions, 2 of them are. I'm going to kill the fractions because I don't like that. They're not as much like the other ones. Now next up, I see that all of them have 10 somehow involved, except this one actually has 20 involved because it's going to be 2 times negative 10. I'm going to cross that one out too. Now, up here, it says 2a plus 10 or 2s minus 10. So let's see what's more common. Well, this is positive 10, this is positive 10, this is positive 10, this is negative, so positive is more common, and I'm going to go with that one. Again, I can't remind you enough that this doesn't guarantee that A is the right answer, but it's a lot better than the 20% you need, and we're finished. No idea how to solve this. Problem or not enough time, so I'm going to use the ultimate math elimination method, which is that you have to eliminate the answers that look the least like the other answers. Well, 3 of these answers have radicals in them and a plus, 2 of them don't, so that's dead and that's dead. Now, these all have 8. Of these 2 answers, I notice that only one of them has 16, 2 of them have 12, so that's dead. And now I notice that 2 of them have root 2 in the answer and one of them doesn't. So, I'm going to go with B, and most of the time that answer is going to be right. Just remember to only use this strategy if you don't have time or if you have no idea what you're doing, because actually solving a math problem is much more effective than just taking random guesses using this method. Alright, yet another random math guessing problem. I have no clue how to solve this thing, so I'm going to find the answer that looks the most like the other answers. Well, there are some easy eliminations here. First of all, this one doesn't have A or B in it. It's done. This one only has B in it. The rest of them have A and B in it, so I'm going to get rid of that one too. Now, I notice that of the fractions, there's a similarity here. So A over B doesn't seem good enough. It seems like there's a common thread going on. I want to kill this one too. And now, between A minus B over B or B minus A over B, I basically just have to take a guess. But the only thing I can notice here is that A minus B or B minus A, well, A is in the numerator as a positive in this one, and in here it's a negative, here it's a positive. So I like A minus B. So I'm going to go with that, and I'm going to move on. I'm all set. Once again, the ultimate math elimination method. So I have these 5 answers, and I want to figure out which ones are not like the others. Well, one of them is a fraction, the rest of them aren't, so let's kill that. One of them is a radical, the other ones aren't, so let's get rid of that as well. Now, what I notice is that pi is in every single one of these problems, so I can't use that as a basis, but 4 only shows up once, so I'm going to get rid of this guy. Now, the ones that are left, I notice pi squared, pi squared, pi squared. I also notice root pi and pi by itself. Well, in this case, I'm probably going to end up going with pi squared, just because I see 3 instances of pi squared. So that's probably what you're going to have to do to get the right answer. So I pick D and I move on. The ultimate math elimination method continues. I have no idea how to solve this problem, or it's just way too hard for me, or I don't have enough time. So I check out the answer choices. And of these 3, what I notice is that 3 of them have roots in them, 2 of them don't. Bam! I'm going to get rid of the ones that don't have radicals. Now next up I look and I say, alright, all of them are fractions, I can't use that as a basis. All of them have root 3 that are still remaining. And now I'm going to look for some common numbers. So, the most common number in here is 4. It shows up multiple times. 16 only shows up twice, and 9 only shows up twice. I don't like 16 over 9 at all. And now it's either root 3 over 4, or 4 root 3 over 3. What you'll notice, however, is that in most of these, it's regular numbers on top of regular numbers. There's only 2 instances of multiplication, here and here. I don't like this because it's not common to the other problems, so I'm going to go with C, and I'm going to move on.
Let's talk a little bit about the guessing penalty. You may not have heard of this before. It's probably because it's unique to the SAT. ETS writers take away a fraction of a point every time you get a question wrong. This is in order to ensure that randomly guessing on the test doesn't accidentally reward you with points.
When it comes to taking multiple choice tests, there's this common piece of advice that often gets thrown around. When in doubt, always choose C, right? Or maybe for you it was B, because this advice comes from everywhere. Maybe you heard it from your dad or your teacher, or you read it on the internet. I'm pretty sure that I heard it from some kid in my 8th grade history class named Jimmy, but as Abraham Lincoln once didn't say, always independently verify advice given to you by 8th graders named Jimmy. Truer words have never not been said. So today we are going to go over some more well-founded and useful advice that you can use to make sure you ace that next multiple choice test you got coming up in the future. And I've got 5 main strategies to go through, as well as 1 secret weapon of sorts, so let's just get started. First off, when those test papers flutter down onto your desk, don't just start immediately going through the questions one by one in a linear fashion. Instead, take a few minutes to go through and skim the test and just get a general overview of the questions. Now, as you're doing this, you can answer any of the questions that stand out as really, really easy or that you're really confident in. But another thing you're doing by doing this whole little skim once over the test before you actually start in earnest is you're priming your brain for some of the questions and details that are on the test as a whole. And this can be really, really useful for a couple of different reasons. One, you're priming your brain to start thinking about some of the harder questions, and we're gonna get to that in a minute. But number 2, sometimes multiple choice tests will have questions that hold details and hints, or sometimes outright full answers to other questions on the test. For example, say you're taking a history test one day and you come across a question like this: which American president's death caused Napoleon to order 10 days of mourning in France? Now, as you're going over the answers, you can eliminate one of them right off the bat, but the other ones, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, George Washington, you don't know which of the 3 is the correct answer. So maybe you skip it, you go on into the test, and then later you come across a question like true or false. Even though Thomas Jefferson and John Adams were bitter political rivals during the heyday of their careers, they eventually regained their friendship and kept it until both of their deaths in 1826. Now, that question just established that Thomas Jefferson and John Adams both died in 1826, and say that you knew from some other source that Napoleon himself had died in 1821. If you knew that, then that question answers the previous question because both Thomas Jefferson and John Adams are not possible answers. Therefore, it's Washington. These kind of details and questions aren't always going to crop up in your tests, and in any case, you probably shouldn't waste a whole ton of your test time digging around for them because, preparation is a much better strategy. You should hopefully come into the test prepared to answer most of the questions in the first place, but it can be helpful in certain occasions. So just prime your brain with a little bit of a preliminary pass before you start in earnest. The second technique on my list is what Barbara Oakley's book A Mind for Numbers calls the hard start jump to easy technique. This is a technique where basically you jump into a
I'll tell you how I went from harassing the snooze button and rolling out of bed with 5 minutes to dress for work to waking up at 4:30 a.m. without attempting to hit the snooze button and being excited to do so. Because being a night owl in this world that's built to benefit early risers can be a major disadvantage. Schools and most jobs start early in the morning, and it's the first thing most people do besides brushing their teeth and staring soullessly into nothing. So once I finished work and got home, I felt exhausted and had trouble getting myself to do anything else rather than wasting time with effortless habits, because most of my productive energy was spent working for someone else. However, I noticed that many of the highly successful people have a habit of waking up early and getting things done even before the majority hit the snooze button for the first time. So in this video, I'll show you how you can be excited to wake up at 4:30 a.m. and why it could change your life for the better. So first, you need to know how much sleep you need to not feel like shit when you wake up, and know that you can actually get too much sleep and feel lazy for the rest of the day. The perfect amount of sleep is most often between 5 to 9 hours, and I challenge you to set the alarm earlier than normally would, to sleep less than usual, just to evaluate how you feel. And again, more sleep is not always the solution to stop being tired in the morning. You might actually be better off with fewer hours of sleep. I used to fall asleep around 3 a.m. and have to be at work at 8 a.m. the latest, which gave me only 4 hours of sleep. Needless to say, my energy levels in the morning when I got to work were low, because I had just rolled out of bed after snoozing for about 35 minutes without having time to drink coffee. So now I can comfortably fall asleep around 10 to 11 p.m. and wake up 4:30 and being excited as I get up. I'll tell you how in a minute. So if you don't know how much sleep you need already, experiment for a few days until you know what suits you, and then you want to proceed to optimize your environment. Eliminate sources of light and try to block it all out. Shut the TV out if you have one in your bedroom, and instead pick up a book to read. Preferably fiction rather than business or self-help, as that will trigger your brain and you will get all sorts of cool ideas that will hinder you from falling asleep. And there are a lot of techniques you can use to fall asleep faster and wake up fresh. And I've made a video about 6 uncommon tips that will definitely speed this process up. But some more common things or tools you can use that will optimize your sleeping environment is white noise machines. It's a tool that reduces the distracting effect of outside noises for a more relaxing environment. It's almost like a heavenly fan without the breeze, just the sound. And this might sound awful to you, but it's highly effective for falling asleep because you won't notice those weird, random noises that you otherwise would be convinced is the ring girl coming for you. Another tool to wake up fresh is to use wake up light alarm clocks. It will wake you up by first turning on a light, which will increase in brightness and eventually go over to sounds. Some models have nature sounds and others just normal beeping sounds. And it's a pretty neat way to wake up, and it takes away that shocking feeling normal beeping alarm clocks will give you. And if you want to check these products out, I'll leave a link to them in the description. And don't snooze. Don't ever hit that snooze button, man. Come on, you know better than that. I don't have to explain this much further, but just knock fuck out of that alarm clock and let it know who's the boss. And then you want to count from 5 backwards to 0, like you're taking off with a rocket. And once you reach 0, you're up and away. It really is that simple, and you will be up within 10 seconds of the alarm going off. And there are some beneficial apps you could use, such as Sleep Cycle, that measures your movement at night and will wake you up at just the right time to eliminate those groggy mornings where you wake up in the middle of your deep sleep not knowing what is going on. And me personally, I just like to go full savage and place my alarm clock on the other side of the room or in the kitchen with full volume. And once I've bounced out there to turn it off, I just tell myself, don't you fucking dare go back to bed. And instead I turn the lights on, splash water on my face, and just like that I'm up and ready to go. And then you need to have a reason. The number one thing for making this habit stick is that you should want to get up, just like you wanted to get up for Christmas as a kid. You can't convince yourself to wake up early just because. There has to be a reason for you waking up. And one thing that gets me to follow any habit is the checklist manifesto. It's such a powerful way of getting things done, and it's so easy to implement. All you need to do is simply create a list of things you want to do the night before you go to bed and put boxes beside every task. And I'm not sure why it's so effective, but it triggers something inside you that just makes you want to tick that little motherfucker, and then you go on to the next one. And instead of trying to wake up early without any reason or purpose, you now have a clear path of where to go, just like playing a computer game and following the quests to finish the game. So for instance, my first 5 tasks is to make my bed, do 40 push-ups, drink a full glass of water, have a shot of apple cider vinegar, and then take a walk while listening to an audiobook. And these 5 tasks only takes me about 20 to 25 minutes to accomplish, and after that I'll make some coffee, and then I'm fully awake and go on to do some more productive work, such as working on these videos. And ticking that little box is so relieving, and actually doing the tasks becomes almost effortless, and the next thing I know, I've had the most productive morning ever. And so before I'm at my regular job, I'm already in the zone, and the how did I even get to work today feeling is long gone. So first, you need to know how many hours of sleep you need each night and execute on that. Then optimize your surroundings to fall asleep faster and wake up easier. And don't you dare hit snooze when you wake up. And finally, have a purpose for getting up. And if you want to be almost as cool as me and listen to audiobooks, you can sign up through my Audible link to the 30-day free trial and get 2 books for free. And you can cancel the membership anytime and still keep the books. And there you go, make sure to implement this tonight already, or since you're probably watching this at 2:42 AM, try this tomorrow. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
That's how you know you